They walked her out of first class as if her presence were a mistake. Eyes slid over the burn scars that climbed her neck. Whispers followed like static. Dr. Thalia, Evershawn, A.V. Blazer. Steady hands. A military watch she still touched out of habit kept her gaze on the window and the orderly ant motion of ground crew. Atlantic Airways, Flight 718, Seat 2A, water, not champagne. Old rules, stay sharp. The Blackwoods arrived in a wash of perfume and entitlement. He sneered. She flinched theatrically, and the murmurs thickened. Senior Attendant Veronica, polite and pained, asked Thalia to move for a seating issue. No reason, no appeal. Thalia gathered her journal advanced trauma protocols for aviation. Emergencies then walked the aisle past tightened jackets and a mother pulling a child close. She didn't hurry. The humiliation was small compared to what she had survived. Through the cockpit crack, she saw the captain over flight plans, Takis Devo. Something about the jawline tugged at memory and vanished. In the last row by the lavatory, she slid her journal into the pocket, title half visible. A uniformed serviceman 5 rows ahead kept glancing back, trying to place her. Zara, a junior attendant, brought water and a blanket. "Some of us recognize real courage," she whispered. Thalia only nodded and watched a headline about the Kandahar siege flicker from a forgotten newspaper. Engines rose. The roll, the lift, the thin line between life and death familiar. The captain came on. Ateca Stevo, cruising at 35,000. The name struck like a bell. A collapsed medical wing. 40% burns on a trapped lieutenant. Smoke. Heat. Her lungs on fire as she went back again and again. She hadn't seen him since door open captain's walkthrough. Polished greetings and first-class loyalty thanks to the Blackwoods. Then his scan reached the back. He stopped mid-sentence, grip tightening on a headrest. Recognition knocked the ease from his face. When he spoke, the cabin hushed without being asked. 5 years ago in Kandahar, he said, voice carrying cleanly, one surgeon went back into a burning building 17 times. She saved 47 lives, mine included. The protocols she wrote are now standard for airline crews worldwide. She's on this flight, heads turned. The serviceman stood. "Corporal Elias Northcutt, sir. My brother and I were pulled out because of Dr. Evershaw." A ripple of murmurs changed shape. Shame softened into awe. The captain came down the aisle and stopped at her row. He stood at attention and saluted. Others in uniform rose and did the same. Thalia's scarred hands stayed folded. She had refused medals, asked for quiet postings, learned to live with people who saw only damage. Now those same eyes were learning something else. "Your place is the cockpit, doctor," the captain said gently, "where you've always belonged." She hesitated. Tension never felt right, but accepted his hand. As they moved forward, small acknowledgments found her, a mother thanking her for operating by phone light when generators died. An old man tapping her sleeve to say his granddaughter studied medicine because of Kandahar. The Blackwoods shrank against the bulkhead, mortified. "We didn't know," Mrs. Blackwood whispered. "Would it have mattered?" Thalia asked. "If I were no one you recognized?" The question hung between them like a mirror. They reached the cockpit. First Officer Darian Rhodes greeted her with a crisp nod and quiet gratitude for a sister saved at Ramstein. She took the jump seat. Outside, the storm wall ahead thickened. A single amber light blinked on the panel and went dark. "Odd," Devo murmured, eyes on instruments. "Minor electrical inconsistencies since takeoff. Probably a sensor." "There's no such thing as just a sensor at 35,000, Thalia said, leaning forward. The light flickered again, longer this time, and a hush fell over the cramped room that felt exactly like the breath before a decision. The amber light pulsed again. Longer, and the cabin lights dipped. Rhodes reported a 0.8-second power sag. Thalia watched the diagnostics. "It's cycling through non-critical buses every 4 minutes. That's hardware, not a ghost." Devo weighed it once, then twice, and asked her opinion plainly. "Descend to 30,000. Reduce pressurization load. Continue if it stays off primaries," she said. He nodded, briefed ATC, and smoothed the descent while reassuring the cabin. The warning returned, firmer. Rhodes traced it to the secondary distribution panel, accessible only through the galley floor. Zara had a toolkit ready. Crew popped the panels. The bay yawned open, a tight nest of cabling and relays. Delia pointed to a heat-stressed connector and a chattering relay. Bypass here, route to tertiary. Devo's hands were steady, hers precise. Years of surgery met years of systems. In minutes, the bypass seeded. Hums evened. Lights held. The cabin breathed as one, and then applauded, embarrassed and grateful. They stood. On the way forward, passengers who had recoiled from her scars now touched her sleeve in thanks. The young mother said her husband had watched her operate by phone light. An older man said a granddaughter chose medicine because of Kandahar protocols. Near first class, the Blackwoods waited, faces changed. We behaved shamefully, Gideon said. Celia held his gaze. Remember this the next time you meet someone who looks different. Visible scars mark survival. The invisible ones shape us. Imagigen whispered an apology that sounded like learning, not performance. Back in the cockpit, systems were stable and the storm wall thinned. Devo gestured to the jump seat. You've earned that more than anyone, she stayed. The quiet felt like an operating room before first incision, alert, purposeful, shared. After a while, he said, almost casual, there's a safety training role in London. Medical expertise, crisis management. You'd be perfect. She arched a brow. Are you offering me a job at altitude? I'm saying the world needs you where it counts, he said. Not hidden. Sunlight broke through the anvils and spilled gold across the instruments. He glanced over. I never thanked you properly. You don't owe me thanks, she said. No one owed you 17 trips into a collapsing wing, he answered. She let the truth of it sit, then smiled. You built something from it. That's the point. So did you, he said. She looked past the glass at blue distance, and for the first time in years, felt the word future without flinching. Behind them, the story of a flicker and a fix was already turning into a tale passengers would tell over dinners and message threads. How the woman they judged kept their flight steady. How a captain saluted at cruising altitude. How a cabin changed its mind. Corporal Northcott stopped by one last time to report all quiet in the back and to pass on his brother's thanks. Rhodes checked his watch. 3 hours to London. Talia glanced at hers and let her hand fall. I measure in moments that matter. They crossed clear air. The Atlantic widened, less a barrier than a bridge. In seat pockets and sleeping laps, shame cooled into reflection. People who had stared at her wounds searched their own foreseams and stitching, the places they'd been mended. The Blackwoods sat hand in hand, smaller, maybe better. Zara tucked the toolkit away and, passing the jump seat, mouthed, Thank you. Talia nodded once, nothing dramatic, just a seal on a shared truth. Clouds parted like curtains. Devo trimmed for the jet stream and said, Not looking over, when we land, come see the office. Maybe, she said. Or maybe I'll see the ward first. He smiled. Either way, somewhere that needs you. She traced the panel's edge with a surgeon's absent-minded care. The scars on her hands pulled, as they always would. But they felt integrated now, neither hidden nor defining. Flight 718 held its course east. In the cabin, small acts recalibrated. A seat traded without prompting. A blanket offered without asking. A child told softly why we never judge a face we don't know. Up front, 3 professionals rode a steady line of air and purpose. Talia watched the horizon and let a new chapter write itself, not about being dragged from first class, not about being an emblem, but about returning to where decisions matter and people listen. She thought of the question she'd left, hanging in the aisle. Would it have mattered if she were no one they knew? She decided to answer it with the way she would work, not the way they had looked. The altimeter ticked down a notch as they optimized fuel. The ocean flashed mirrors of light. Somewhere ahead lay London, a job offer, maybe a ward. Certainly another day to turn pain into practice. When the seatbelt chime sounded for minor chop, she caught Devo's eye and he caught hers, and that was enough. Survival, she realized, is not just living through fire. It's steering into weather with people who refuse to look away. The airplane droned, the sky opened. The woman so many had misread leaned back into the harness and felt simply right where she belonged. Subscribe for more hero stories.